I always say if I can get people to care about art like 10% as much as I do, I'm doing my job. And if I can just spread that message and spread that passion, then I think everything else will fall into place. How do I describe what I do? I'm a gallerist, which means that I'm part curator. I bring together art and artists and bring conversations around the art to the gallery space, but I'm also an art dealer. So I help sell the art, I help artists build their career, I help develop how they can relate to their audience, and help people who are looking for art in their lives bring it into their home. I grew up in Texas, and my family spent a lot of time back and forth to India, and I think even since I was a little kid, I was always fascinated by culture. I went to undergrad in DC, and during that time, I really started seriously studying culture, both from a humanities perspective, I was an English major, and also a social science perspective, because I was also an international affairs major, and between disciplines like critical theory and anthropology, I really started to sharpen my perspective on culture, and I felt that that was the space I wanted to dedicate my life to. So immediately after undergrad, I went to do my PhD at NYU. So I arrived in New York at age 21, just like really eager to immerse myself in everything New York City had to offer. After I finished my PhD, I started working in entertainment because I really just needed a job in New York, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with the PhD, and I did that for years. But during that time, I spent so much time in art galleries and getting to know artists, and art just started taking over my life. And I was really struck by the fact that there wasn't a dedicated South Asian gallery on the West Coast, and I wanted to see the gallery I was hoping for as a collector, as an art enthusiast, and all of those different factors came together. And it's kind of funny because my journey seems a little bit all over the place, but I feel like from that rigorous academic training I had to the really commercial and kind of wide audience-based work I was doing in entertainment, between the two, I developed a really strong perspective of how to talk about art and how to not only be really, really deliberate and critically incisive with the work, but also how to make that accessible to a wider audience and how to introduce people who might not know art to different artists and different practices. And I really think without knowing it, I was unconsciously building skills that all led me to this point. When you come to our gallery in Hollywood, you'll enter into this beautiful courtyard space, which we wanted to transport our visitors from the busy streets of Hollywood and LA to an oasis of art and culture. And when we put this space together, we really wanted it to reflect the inspirations that people would see within the gallery. So I was thinking a lot about architectural spaces in India itself. The trellising over here is a gesture to Kerala, where my family's from. And all of this becomes a way to really show that we're doing something a little bit different than the surroundings around here. And I want people to feel like, yes, you're in LA, but also you could be in another part of the world. One major turning point for me was when I went to the India Art Fair in Delhi. At that particular time, spending a full day just completely surrounded by the best contemporary art that India had to offer and seeing the scope of the landscape, it really was like an aha moment where I realized this is what I needed to dedicate myself to. This is what I had to offer, this is what was really moving me, this is what was keeping me stimulated, and I saw huge opportunities to bring that to the US, especially on the West Coast. And so that was one moment where I really saw the gallery coalesce in my head as a real possibility of something I could do and something that I could really bring to the world, and I haven't really looked back since then. I'd love to start with this work from Zihan Vazed. Zihan is based in Queens. He is Bangladeshi American, and his work brings together the aesthetics of New York street culture. He got his background in street art, and with this incredible depiction of an urban landscape within South Asia. And using this vibrant street art inspired palette, he kind of collapses time and space and makes New York and South Asia feel almost the same in some ways. And you can see that he has this really incredible relationship to color itself and such a vivid sense of how pigment can communicate a sense of mood and style. And I love bringing him into conversation with another work of a similar scale but a really different perspective and proportion, this work by Srimanti Saha. This is Srimanti's first time showing in the US, and there's already incredible interest in her practice. Her work brings together techniques from Mughal miniature, a very classic South Asian style of making, with elements that are inspired by Japanese woodcut illustration. And through all of that, she creates a glimpse of her inner landscape, this very imaginative depiction of what it's like inside her own imagination and emotional self. There isn't a typical day in my life because, first of all, so much of the work involves travel, so I'm on the road a lot. When I'm not on the road, I'm here in the gallery, I'm talking people through the art, whether it's someone who's just wandering in from the street and wants to sort of see what's going on in here, to really seasoned collectors who are thinking about acquiring new art. I'm constantly taking people through the space, explaining the work. I'm also in studio with artists quite often. For me, that's the most important part of this process, is actually going to where the artists make the work and, in a way, stepping inside their head and understanding how they see the world so I can responsibly present the work to the world. My favorite part about my job is working with artists. I meet some of the most incredible creative minds through my job, and there are times where I feel absolutely floored and humbled to be in the presence of such genius. I see artists who are, changing the world through the way that they present their perspective and teaching people new ways to see. So any opportunity I get to really immerse myself in an artist's mind, to spend time with them in the studio, that is by far my favorite part of the job. But another thing I love is helping people find their first piece of art. It's so exciting when someone comes in knowing that they're art curious but not knowing how to go about it, and helping them find that work that really speaks to them and encapsulates what they're looking for. It's a life-changing moment. When you bring art into your home, it's not only addictive because then you just want to support more artists and bring more art in, but it also is like a really big moment of self-discovery. I don't want people to think of this as just a consumer experience where you just come in and buy something and that's it. I want to make sure that people are treating the art as a really precious, living, breathing part of the culture, and that's a big part of my philosophy. I also have a really strong belief in the importance of physical, real-life experiences. I want people to come to the gallery and see the work in person, and that leaves me with kind of an ambiguous relationship to social media. I want to encourage people to get off their phones and come see the work in person, and I definitely see the role that social media has in promoting that, but I want to be very conscious that real art viewing happens in person, and I want to encourage people to be able to have that opportunity. I hope that this gallery opens up possibilities for lots of new people to take an interest in the arts. I think, especially for South Asian folks, this isn't a job you grow up hearing about by any means. And so I hope that people can take inspiration and take on their own projects in the arts as well, because that's how we build a really robust, healthy arts ecosystem for South Asian art in the US. The first thing I would say is to hone your cultural perspective. I am really grateful for my long, weird, circuitous journey to being an art gallerist, because I think during that time, I kind of trained without even realizing it. I was constantly reading, I was studying art, I was reading critical theory, I was thinking about how I could be not only a good expert on art itself, but also a good critic that could place that art within the larger context of the culture. So I would say, make sure that you're very well researched, that you know the landscape of what's out there, you know how people are writing about art and thinking about art. And then from there, and from all that sort of exploration and experience, to sharpen and think about what you want to add to the wider culture. What's next? I think we've been able to establish a really great base here in Los Angeles. We have strong interest not only from the wider arts community, but from the South Asian community here, and we're creating a lot of new collectors in the process. But I want to take on a global scope to this mission. I want South Asian art to be not just limited to one gallery, but to be a true cultural movement that shifts the world. Can South Asian visuality have a similar impact in the culture? Could South Asian art be influential in spaces like design and fashion? And I want to think about how the gallery can be in those dialogues. So cross-medium, interdisciplinary conversations are a really big priority for me, but I also want to think about our global impact. We're doing our first presentations in India, one in August in Jaipur, and then one next year at the India Art Fair. And I think between those two, we'll get to really have this nice dialogue between the US and India. What's the dream? The dream would be to have multiple locations across the world. I think it would be to think of the gallery as a hub, not only for visual art, but for broad cultural exchange. I would love the gallery to be, really active in shaping creative minds in Hollywood. And I want the gallery to be synonymous with the larger cultural movement happening where South Asian visual perspectives are at the forefront of culture. So I want to really just keep on the trajectory we're going, to expand our footprint, to have a deeper presence across the world. but to also really show that LA is a major hub for South Asian creativity. I want to keep this momentum, I want to keep the excitement we have around the gallery, and I want to convert people to art lovers. And I think as long as I'm doing that, and as long as the passion for art is being spread, I think everything else will fall into place.